that first 6 months, if you're going to spend 200-300 hours on just a bunch of stuff, that's time you're not spending with clients, the people in the field, operations and processes. So like I always tell people, it's like my own catchphrase. It's like, as a new operator, you have 4 buckets you have to spend time on and nothing else. It's the people, the ops, the sales, and the processes. If it's not one of those 4 things, you're wasting your time, especially in that first 12 months.
You're listening to Before You Buy or Sell a Business, hosted by Jared Johnson, the top SBA lender in the country. On this show, we break down business acquisitions, talk to industry pros, and provide real-world advice for buyers and sellers.
Welcome back to Before You Buy or Sell a Business. Today we have Adam Markley. See, you've been on a lot of podcasts. You're definitely a good voice in the ETA space. So maybe give us a little bit about your background and how you found this crazy world of search.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Jared. This has been a wild ride. My background, I nearly failed out of college before I stumbled into accounting and finance. It clicked for me. I actually graduated early.
Wait. Let me stop you there. So you were going to fail out of college and then you found a harder subject?
So I went to school. I was going to study engineering, first computer and then electrical engineering. And I was just bored. How many calculus level classes can you take? So anyways, I nearly failed out. I lost my scholarships and everything I had to school. And so after 18 months, I ended up switching to accounting and finance, and it just clicked. And so from that moment, I did my entire undergrad degree in 2 years. So I actually graduated early.
So you just needed something that was
clicked.
More interesting for
and
you.
And I'm not an academic in any classical sense. I got much smarter people in my family than me. I wanted to get into the working world. It's the world that made sense to me. I worked the entire time through college, either on campus or off campus, basically full time. And again, for me, it was just trying to navigate, checking the box, so to speak, right? I ended up after school in a small regional public accounting firm, working all on small businesses. And it reinforced a random thought I had when I was 18 or 19 that I didn't know at the time what the words meant. But the idea of buying car washes and laundromats and like rolling a group of them together, what we know as a roll up or things like that I couldn't have ever defined it. But I had these ideas, which is wild for someone that age to have. But then I got exposed to small business and small business owners at scale in that first job. And a lot of that was pretty impactful. I had a client, he was a physical therapist. He had one location, like 7 kids. He's managing his QuickBooks between patients. And he's like, how do I not do this? I'm like, that's a great question. I should probably figure out the answer to that. And over the course of the next couple of years, he expanded from 1 to like 5 locations and was no longer doing his QuickBooks and really leveraged what growth could look like in a small business. And, insert that and all the other stories that feel classics, like they're either making their money in business, somewhat real estate, but a lot of them make their money in business and then invest in real estate. I had another formidable moment. I never forget one of my clients. I'm holding his quarterly estimated tax payment. And it's, a personal check, like the old school little personal checks. And it's $7 million for a quarterly estimated payment. And I'm holding this, I'm, 22 at the time going, well, what the?
Yeah.
They're like, go make a photocopy. I'm like, well, that's going to eat it. It's guaranteed. But the idea is, it's like he made his money in business, and there's a logic and a common sense to that. Fast forward over the next 10-ish years of my career, I led what I always say, somewhat cheekily, is like I led a really mediocre kind of corporate career. I left public accounting, worked in a couple industries, had a quick second stint in public accounting, and I actually got fired from that stint. They put me on clients I didn't want to be on and was uninteresting, and ultimately ended up at a large privately held direct response publishing business where we were selling financial health newsletters in mass. We're talking, $1 billion+ multinational business. And my stint there was informed by two things. My first half kind of oversaw financial ops and strategy for all the non-revenue generating sides of the business. This led me to travel a lot internationally in parts of the US. These were all individual business units. So it's basically wildly decentralized in call centers, marketing, IT, accounting, HR, legal. All these supportive functionalities ran as their own businesses, and I basically designed their business models internally. And then the second half of my stint was really where my entry point into ETA started coming in, or what we would think of it. I flipped to the revenue side of the business and inadvertently became the first non-marketer, non-copywriter to start an entire division. And my division was just based on doing deals. Set up a joint venture with an international real estate group, did a partial acquisition on a precious metals business founded by some former Goldman guys, and built this entire ecosystem just doing deals off of them. And the penultimate acquisition in that space was I bought an education company teaching people how to buy companies. So one of the early, most people will understand certainly Cody Sanchez in today's world and the derivatives or alternatives thereof. Certainly Walker's gotten big off Buy Then Build, and there's just a whole group of internet marketers in the space. I was part of the earlier phase of that for business acquisition. So bought this business, all earn out deal, by the way, 4X.
Nice.
Legal screwed up that by closing, as legal can, but it was a great deal. So bought that into corporate and as part of this group and division I'd built. And then a year later, I bought it out with the original founder and have been successfully unemployed since then. Concurrent to all of this, I started doing deals outside of the day job. I've acquired small businesses in the UK and in the US. I'm all US focused now. I'm out of the UK. And have had failures along the way, struggles. I've had to pay loans out of my own pocket. One of our UK businesses went tits up in the absolute wrong way. We had an operating partner. He emptied the bank accounts. The banks over there wouldn't freeze the accounts. They're like, well, he's on it, so he can do it. And you're like, in what world can someone just zero an operating account? So that's informed all kinds of things is through the struggles and the hard. None of it's been easy. You buy a business, there's a non-owner president in the company and you're expecting things of them. And then less than 2 months later, you're having to unfortunately terminate them because they're lying to you. They're lying to the former owner. They're lying to the staff, telling everyone they're working on someone else's stuff. And turns out the most valuable thing he did was here in this modern world, hand deliver paychecks, as if direct deposit wasn't a thing. And so you learn through all of these things. And so across that, built a portfolio, our active current core portfolio, as I said, we've got 8 businesses. 4 of them I acquired with SBA loans. So I've signed the fat stack of PG paperwork 4 times. And I would say have survived through a lot of that, right? I think people can express a lot of optimism to this. I have a lot of it. I'm still in the space, but it's never easy. It's always hard. And just when you think you've solved it, you have a new problem or challenge to approach. But I've done off-market deals, on-market deals, SBA, non-SBA. I've kind of seen the gamut, lived it through the education business, which I'm no longer involved with and haven't been for quite a while, several plus years now. Coached hundreds of people how to do this through that. Subsequent to that, coach people indirectly, run a very large meetup here in Denver. As you well know, you're about to have your second appearance at the meetup, and soft pitch. Also putting together, in conjunction with universities here in Colorado, the Rocky Mountain ETA conference. It's going to be self-funded focus. Some of the conferences out there, they want to charge people $1,000, which doesn't make sense for self-funded folks. It's a lot of money. Full day event, great education. It's cool for the inaugural one to have pulled together multiple universities. So University of Colorado Boulder, we're the next best thing outside of primetime coaching there, the football team. So come on, ETA. Colorado State University School of Mines here in Colorado is also helping. And so it's great. We expect that to expand, but October 25th, make sure you come. But anyways, yeah, so it's been this wild journey of seeing it from an education side, seeing it from an operational side, an acquisition side, a deal structuring side. And all that leads to the last couple of years where I've transitioned from being the primary acquirer to a minority stake investor. Transparently, I'm a solid B- operator. There's people who are way better than me at that. But I'm really, really great at the risk management side from deal structuring, understanding the components, the levers to pull and things like that. And have lived enough, transparently on the operations side to understand the challenges that absolutely will be faced. And with that have evolved into that minority investment side and subsequently raised a fund to support the investing I was already doing and continue to do. And so I can invest in more people, help more people, and be a resource along the way. So really long-winded intro, but all that said, I've lived kind of this full ecosystem from a background, seen what business looks like for those who have been there, to having done and navigated these deals. And yeah, I mean, at one point was reviewing somewhere between 50 to 100 deals a month. We had this kind of former partner program where we were actively working with people and we were just ripping deal flow, and able to provide so much feedback. And it's a big thing for me, right? I strive today to be the person I wish I had 10 years ago. There wasn't as many people in the space who have had experience and were able and capable of sharing it in the way they are. And so as you well know, I've helped some of your folks. It's like, I will just always review anyone's deal for them. There's no expectation. It's kind of my standing offer because I wish I had that. And
yeah, I always take the same stance. And that's what I tell people all the time. It's like, I get a lot of people reach out to me. When should I call you?
Sooner.
Now. Like, yeah, why are you asking me? Yeah, no, let's look at a deal now. I don't care. That's one of my favorite things to do, right? I hate email. I hate sitting there and, dealing with, some of the minutia of things we have to do as lenders. But anytime I look at a deal, it's always fun to look at it and say, okay, does it line up to, what they actually feel like, how it should be, where can you take it? All that stuff's fun, and then of course, then putting together LOIs and all that part of the process is really fun. So I totally get why you like doing it.
Well, one, it's massively enjoyable, but two, it's where the real learning from a deal making process comes in, right? If you're writing an LOI and you happen to get it, great. First of all, great, congratulations. But what have you learned in that? I'm several thousand companies deep in terms of like real evaluation. It's, it's rare to come across an industry or vertical I have not seen in some capacity. And
it's so weird when it does happen.
Yeah, you're like, oh God, that's exciting. It's just, it's fun. I mean, I've looked at roller coaster design and engineering firms.
Yeah.
Do you know there's only a handful of them in the world?
I've looked at those.
Yeah. And it's like you look at them and it's like the small world stuff of these unique things. But that's the part is there isn't a great sounding board. It's just like transparently working with lenders, right? Most searchers will go through that process once. The feedback loop to learning what's the right way to work with a lender, the wrong way to work with a lender, how do you position that for success or not? Where's the feedback loop for that? There is none, right? Outside of lenders themselves and folks who are more proactive on the front-facing side like you, who are willing to put that time in and listen, you don't want to lose deals to another bank, but if there's another bank offering a better opportunity that's going to increase the likelihood of success, you will never not support someone taking that decision. That's just good ethos
Right.
for the space. And the idea is like, that's how I look at it from the overall side is like, there's searchers I've been helping for 18 months who are still searching. And I've looked at, a dozen plus deals with them and evaluated and helped them understand that. And they haven't done anything for me once except, maybe thank you. Or if they're local, they bought me a coffee or a lunch. But the idea is that it's so important to have those anchors of support as early in the process because there are pitfalls everywhere. And no one's going to ever prevent them from stubbing their toe. But man, if I can help you from kicking the door jam a few times, just imagine how that impacts you downstream.
Yeah. And then talk a little bit about what you do if you invest in that deal and then afterwards. Obviously, you've got a lot of experience. Understanding a little bit more about your background in accounting now makes a little more sense. So maybe talk a little bit about that and what kind of makes it a little bit different.
Yeah. So everything I do is informed from my own experiences. I'm not smart enough to know otherwise. And so having learned it the hard way in many ways, it's been a kind of fight and battle to how does that translate from what we're doing for our own portfolio, and then how do we provide support elsewhere? So when we now invest in a deal, there's some things that are really critical for us, some of which are relatively unique to the investor space. First and foremost, we aren't going to invest in a deal unless, and I have two partners in the fund, a couple of co-GPs, Peggy and Eliza, they're great. But unless one of us has done a site visit, predominantly it's going to be me. We're going to meet you. We're going to meet the seller. At this point, I've had literally hundreds and hundreds of seller calls, and I've done, I can't even tell you how many site visits at this point. And the goal isn't to come in there and dominate a conversation. It's there to be an observer predominantly. It typically will happen post quality of earnings. You might even have a commitment letter from the bank, from a funding perspective. And it's a good final external gut check from a real informed position. Sellers have such a disproportionate impact on the success of your transaction. People are like, I got non-competes and non-solicits. Those mean nothing. It's bad things can happen. I've had an experience. I'm happy to share the impact later, but it's like the idea is like these things can happen where something with a seller can have unexpected consequences, and that's real. And you've got to be able to navigate that. And so someone who can see how you're interacting and what that relationship is important. And it doesn't mean try to game that, like be authentic. Understand a seller, if they show you who they really are in this process, that's how they manage. That's how they operate the business. So if they get frustrated or have power issues or anger issues or they're reactionary, imagine a world in which they are the sole decider, the sole power source for whatever's happening. That's the business. That's an amplifier of those character traits, not a modifier. And so if they're not someone you can have a great relationship with or have a great relationship with already, post-acquisition, it will only amplify what that relationship is, not modify it. So for us, the site visit's important. And so that's something that we really work on. And thereafter, when we're thinking about, hey, is that a deal breaker or not? Yeah, if there's real problems in this space and you guys are not getting along, we're going to flag that. And you should be aware of that. So one of the other things we do, and you talk about the accounting side. So as we were building our portfolio, one of the recurring themes we found was it was immensely distractive for us operationally to, manage your transition. If it's an asset purchase, it's new bank accounts, entities. If it's a B2B business, you're chasing the clients to stop paying the seller to pay you and migrate. They're paper checks. Now you want them ACH. It's just a lot of headache. And a lot of searchers now turned operators will default into running point on a lot of stuff because they're the owner. They have to. Well, when we invest in a business, we will oversee, support, and or fully run the back office of the company. Listen, if they have an office manager or an accountant in-house who's doing things, we're not looking to replace their job. We're looking to wrap around them with a shell of experience and operational knowledge that comes from people who have actually run, acquired, and operated businesses, right? So we accidentally got into the accounting firm space. Of the 8 companies in my portfolio, it's our accidental startup. So we built this functionality for ourselves as we were going through this. People kept asking for help. It became a service provider. And we just saw repeatedly the impact that this had post-acquisition. That first 6 months, if you're going to spend 200-300 hours on just a bunch of stuff, that's time you're not spending with clients, the people in the field, operations and processes. So like I always tell people, it's like my own catchphrase. It's like, as a new operator, you have 4 buckets you have to spend time on and nothing else. It's the people, the ops, the sales, and the processes. If it's not one of those 4 things, you're wasting your time, especially in that first 12 months. You have to drink from that fire hose and come up to speed as quick as possible. And it will only happen spending time with your customers, which comes from the sales processes, your people. That is the entire business, is the
100%.
people.
Yeah.
Your operations. How is the sausage made? How do you go from idea to cash in the bank, right? And so it's so important for that. And so for us, when we invest, that's a huge criteria for us to say, listen, we're going to be writing a large check, and along the lines of maximizing your likelihood of success, we want to make sure you have that in place. It's a simple retained service. We're not looking to make crazy amounts of money on that. Like if I'm writing a $500,000 check, the amount of money I'll make on a $2,500 a month retainer to run your back office is I'd have to run it for 100 years to justify a $500,000 investment. So it's not really about that. It's more about increasing the likelihood of success. We have yet to lose a client from that business, from anything we've done, or any client in general. And everyone we've invested in from the ETA side, where we're investing and partnering with them on this, there's been such a significant impact where they're uniformly like, it's hard to realize until you live it. They're like, I don't know how I could have done this without it, because they've still had to drink through the fire hose.
Yeah, unless you've lived that transfer life cycle, you don't realize.
It's how do you know? It's your frame of reference is tough, and so for us, that's really critical and important. A lot of the other core elements of investing, we live kind of middle end of the, I'd say, standard investor economics, where we're going to write a check. We're going to expect some level of step up in equity. So if we invest 10% of the deal, we're likely looking for 25% of the company, or if we're the lead investor, those effective economics. And then commensurately a preferred rate of return and things like that. We tend to have long-term views. Like this isn't a fix and flip. We know what high growth can look like, and it's very expensive to try to have that at a small business where you're heavily levered. But for us, it's around how do we provide support strategically, operationally, financially, et cetera, where you're surrounded by people who've lived it and have that kind of experience. Again, to maximize your likelihood of success. And so the back office is just one of those levers. We kind of have a 4-pillar approach as we think about it from the fund perspective. The first is your spouse, partner, family, friends, network. These are people who are going to ride or die with you no matter who you are. You should always have that. The problem is they're not the right people to support you across the board, right? They're not ready to ride the roller coaster that is the true entrepreneurial journey in the same way. We're a huge believer in peer groups for operators. We don't mandate them. There's some great individuals out there and great groups out there, some which are ETA focused and some that aren't. But find the one that fits best for you. It's incredibly important. If you are an ETA or you are acquiring, there's a lot of value in that. So that's pillar 2 is like, do that. The second pillar is us from a strategic investor side, kind of live the strategic process. I don't need a formal board meeting where you've put together a huge slide deck as to what's going on. The standing expectation is everyone getting on any kind of recurring call to discuss the business is like, if they haven't spent the time to understand where the business is financially or otherwise, then they shouldn't be on that call. It's an important part. So that's the third pillar, is that strategic support, the sounding board for directional and major items. And then the fourth is the back office. They are truly your financial partner. You can talk to them every day, every week, whatever frequency is required. But the idea is like, it's a direct relationship. It doesn't run through us. It's a standalone separate business that does its thing, run by my right-hand guy who's been along the ride for the entire portfolio build and has helped manage every transition along the way we had for our own. And now, so many others thereafter. And the idea is like that focus, that relationship is super intentional. And so you have this circle of support where everyone's got a different touch point and your emotional connectivity will look and feel different for each. And it allows you to evolve through this challenge that is ops. So yeah, so that's how we invest and that's how we think about it. We're happy to look at anyone's deal. We're happy to support that. And there's several other investors out there. They'll send me deals to review, ask me questions on how they're doing things and things like that. And I try to take the rising tide lifts all boats approach here. There's great people in the space, all trying to do great things, and there's no right or wrong answer to any of them. It's what's right for you, and try to find the people who are going to maximize that success.
So you've been in the space for a long time, a lot longer than I thought. You've seen it evolve and grow. Where do you think, I guess we'll just call it search, where do you think it's headed in the next, 3 to 10 years?
Yeah, it's a great question because it has evolved so much. I mean, I came from the business buy a business crowd, right? Where we didn't have the fancy ETA moniker or search or anything like that. And it's evolved so much. I mean, gosh, you could get 7-figure deals under LOI. It was you and like 2 other blokes trying to find it, buy it, do whatever. And we lived that, saw that. And it's evolved so much, right? It's gone from, not a fantasy, but an enclave of Ivy League schools teaching this with Harvard and Stanford and kind of matriculating outward to now tier 2 universities like the University of Colorado, where I help teach this now. And you're seeing this. And I think one of the biggest values that's happening is, you talk about deals being smaller back in the day where it was kind of general managers or otherwise who are kind of looking to buy their boss's shop, or kids maybe buying their parents' shop. The benefit of this touching non-Ivies, these kind of tier 2 schools, the University of Colorado is a great example. I mean, some of them are military vets with a decade in the military who have come out and had some life experience and they're using the rest of their GI Bill to get further education, or they're a mid-career professional who's had real experience managing people, leading teams, developing whatever their field of expertise is. And I think it's exposing people in a very intentional way. And underpinning all of this, and underpinning is maybe not the right word, but in the backdrop of all of this, you have the online marketing sphere that is spending 8 figures a year on marketing efforts, selling courses and creating awareness of this mailbox money-ish type world. And I think all of this has created a heated environment and a heated ecosystem. So where do I think it's going? I think it's only getting more complicated to search. I think if anyone's looking to rely solely on on-market deals to find their company, I think they're going to have an increasingly difficult time. We've already seen that shift a lot in the last 5 years. Find reputable off-market search businesses, as we've built our own ecosystem, like we've built that functionality. Like I've got partners who run off search for searchers, because when you're looking, you now have to become so specialized in every function of the process that you can't be great at everything. You can't be a great cold sales outreach person, a la off-market search. At the same time, you're an effective deal manager and deal analyst. At the same time, you then become a due diligence and deal closing expert. And by the way, the end rejoice of all this, the end goal is you're going to have the worst, hardest job ever, potentially most gratifying, which is, an operator running the business. And so I think more people are going to evolve to where that's going to be, they're going to start finding ways to augment the search process more and more. I think you have to, and do so with real intentionality. I think another shift is, transparently, the loan books and loan portfolios en masse aren't performing well for the last couple of vintages. And I think we should reasonably expect some further changes to the SBA loans process and expectations and requirements. Candidly, something that might be good for us as investors, but more challenging for searchers would be an increase to the equity requirement on deals to kind of force down that LTV. They've already done it in effect this past spring. While I don't know if they'll go beyond that, it wouldn't surprise me if they did to help mitigate risk, or there's an underlying change in the underwriting by banks and how they view post-acquisition liquidity, not just for the searcher, but for the capitalization of the business. And you guys then are also expecting different levels of capital coming in. That would not surprise me. Or, the minimum requirements on DSCR go up, so debt service change. How they are statutorily as low as they are is still amazing to me. 115 is crazy.
Yeah, I think that just goes back to real estate, right? And that was kind of the whole thing, is there's like this blanket debt service coverage ratio for all of 7A loans, and they probably need to divvy it up depending on the type of loan.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that would fix everything, right? If they said, going from 1.15 to, even if you just said 1.25, 1.3 or something, then it would sort of take care of some of the other things, right? Because you couldn't theoretically go to 90% all the time unless you're, meeting that debt service coverage. So either multiples need to come back down to where it was, before or in line, or you need to put in more equity to get that debt service coverage.
Even standardization around how you're calculating DSCR. Banks calculate differently. Some are looking at a true post-tax, post-operator DSCR, which is more conservative, which is honestly the better path, because between debt, someone having enough money to live on, and Uncle Sam, those are all things you got to pay, whether you like it or not. And so some don't do that. They're calculating like a pre-tax DSCR. And again, so I think standardization around that and elevating that, I think, would be only a good thing. So I would expect some of that kind of stuff to happen. I think on a future pace, the buyers who have stronger balance sheets and have more credibility, we can define those, but the perceived better buyers are going to have more success in the long term getting deals closed. These are people who have much more liquidity individually. Not that they're putting that into the deal, but that it's available for use. And it shows there's a capability of success or achievement in order to get there. Not to mention their transferable skills from whatever their professional is. But
typically the way they accumulated that wealth or their liquidity came from doing something else successfully most of the time. Yeah,
and even one step further is I remember people asking me about this, how much money do I need? I want to do no money down deals and all that nonsense. But the idea is, if you haven't figured out how to save true liquidity personally in your own life, you're going to find this really hard. Managing a business is no different than managing your household budget. And I don't want to minimize and say this isn't a journey for all people, but realistically, you're talking about real risk and real hurdles and real challenges. And there's a lot of delayed gratification that comes from being a successful operator and entrepreneur. And if you haven't reflected those characteristics in your own personal financial life that get measured pretty clearly in a personal financial statement delivered to a bank and or investors, you're going to have a hard time convincing them why you're the right guy or gal to jump in and do this. It's a reflection of your decision-making capabilities. So, it's a huge emphasis as people are looking forward. It's being a better qualified buyer, being a better qualified searcher, and how you're doing it and how you're prioritizing and outsourcing or supporting yourself on that process. And then finally, all of those things I see impacting kind of multiples and deal structures. But, I dream of a world where people are under-levering and kind of maximizing their balance sheets. Again, this, looking at a deal where, that you guys are looking at where they are intentionally putting 7 figures of extra cash on the balance sheet as part of a self-funded deal so they can intentionally go drive growth. More people doing proactive, progressive, forward-thinking capitalization work before they buy, I think will drastically change outcomes and create more momentum around, hey, we want bigger check sizes from the SBA. We want to go from 5 million to 7.5. The loans got to perform better before I think those things really come to fruition.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. Okay, 2 final questions. First one, do you have a mentor or have you ever had a mentor?
I don't know if I've ever had a single mentor for like a solo purpose. There's been people I've worked with who I've admired immensely for the kind of work ethic or area of expertise or things like that. So I've had kind of a diverse group. Certainly anyone who's been in, we'll call it value investing in any capacity, would think of a Warren Buffett and how he thinks and how he evaluates as like a macro figure. But otherwise, like on an individual basis, it comes down to people within arm's reach, someone you've seen do something and seek them for advice. And yeah, I've had a number of those in my life at this point, thankfully.
Cool. Okay, final question. What motivates you? You've done a lot. You've been successful. I know you're like, we've talked a lot about what can we do next? What else can we do to help the industry and stuff? Like, what keeps you going?
So I would say the thing that keeps me going the most is I continue, it's back to the investing side a little bit, and the thesis of supporting and reviewing deals for everyone with no expectations is I strive to spend a significant portion of my time being available as a resource in a manner that I wish I had when I started this process. I love it. I enjoy it. Watching other people's success is fantastic. And, I don't want to hide away from the fact that certainly opportunity can come from that in terms of investment opportunity or supporting with any of the service businesses I have in the space, right? I've got marketing agencies, the back office business, an off-market search business. Like these are all great and they're all helpful, but at its core comes from, I didn't have someone I could call who had done it. I didn't have entrepreneurs as parents, people I could model any of what I was doing after. I didn't learn that in any way. And so I just want to be that kind of sounding board. And it's immensely fulfilling. And I think about the meetup I run here in Denver. We've probably had 15, 20 people or more buy companies in the not even 2 years we've been running it. I mean, like that network legacy impact. I mean, shoot, we had 2 people meet at the meetup, partner, and then acquire a business together, a small electrical contractor. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that motivates me and excites me, and being able to be in the mix and involved and kind of help lead and support that evolution and change. So
yeah, it's fun at the end of the day.
Seeing
it change hands is always really cool. And then thinking like long term, like somebody one day is going to be like, man, my grandpa did this, bought a business, was able to hand it down to me or take care of me financially, but it all goes back to who helped them, gave them the idea, walked them through it, made sure they were successful. Like, it's just a cool thing to think about.
Yeah, and I don't know if my name ever needs to be on the masthead of any of that stuff, but the idea, it's like
you were still involved. Yeah,
you're still involved in other people's. There's almost nothing more rewarding than other people's success, and by extension, if you put enough good out there, it'll certainly come back full circle, and you'll end up having the success you might want to have individually. And I, of course I have ambitions and want to grow and build and be a leading voice and a leading investor in the space and do it the right way and the supportive way and be able to track things, trying to lead an investor group right now with a bunch of people who run funds or have capital to deploy. And like, how are we doing things in the right way? Not just how do we structure things legally, how do we structure things operationally, but potentially policy impacts, but even help each other along the way. And how can we aggregate our data together to show lenders and to show the SBA itself that investors are value add, because we're coming at it with the right mindset and the right approach. And how do we protect this ecosystem that we're all part of, which is such an amazing value. How often do you get to help someone achieve some level of their own dream? That's pretty incredible. And to have any role in that at whatever touch point, even if it's just a quick phone call, is just unbelievably rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. Where can people find you?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, of course. And you can find me a couple places, certainly on LinkedIn, Adam Markley, Twitter, Adam Markley SMB, email, amarkley@proxcapitalgroup.com, and just always happy. Feel free to reach out and always available.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jared.
Thank you all for listening to Before You Buy or Sell a Business. If you found value in this episode, please follow the show, leave a positive review, and share it with someone. For more information, check out jaredwjohnson.com. We'll see you all next time.